You don't talk about it, but loneliness has been following you for years, like a quiet shadow with perfect memory. It knows every moment when your mind cracks a little, when your attention collapses inward, when your identity flickers. And the worst part? You've learned to hide it even from yourself. You say you're just tired, busy, focused, but deep down your emotions are starving. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of being seen. And no one admits how terrifying that truly is. Because once you start to see your own emptiness, you can't unsee it. This is where the mind begins to fracture, quietly, politely, invisibly. But tonight, you're going to face the truth psychology usually whispers about. And once you hear it, you won't be able to pretend anymore. You've been told a simple story. Loneliness happens when you don't have people around you. But that idea is a lie, repeated so often it became a habit of thinking. Real loneliness begins when your relationships no longer reflect you. When you talk, but no one truly listens. When you share, but nothing lands. When you smile, but the emotion behind the smile has no place to go. You can be surrounded by friends and still feel painfully invisible. You can be in a relationship and feel like a ghost in your own home. You can have followers, connections, messages, and yet no real intimacy. Loneliness is not emptiness around you. It's emptiness inside attention, inside identity, inside your emotional world. Loneliness isn't a moment. It's a psychological pattern, a habit your mind learned long ago. It's the brain's survival response to years of emotional hunger. It imprints itself into your identity until you mistake it for your personality. So you don't just feel lonely, you become someone who expects loneliness. Your mind looks for familiar pain, even if it destroys you, because the mind would rather suffer in familiar ways than heal in unfamiliar ones. This is the truth no one admits. Loneliness becomes your identity long before you notice it. And once it settles in, it shapes your thoughts, your habits, your relationships, your entire behavior. Loneliness is not who you are, but it has been teaching you how to live, and now it's time to unlearn it. There's a kind of tiredness you can't sleep off, the one that comes from holding yourself together for too long. You play strong, functional, independent, but inside everything is quietly collapsing. Loneliness drains your emotional energy because you never get refilled by human connection. You scroll through lives that look full while yours feels like an unfinished sentence. You don't compare achievements, you compare belonging. The mind always amplifies what you already fear. And you fear being the one left out. Somewhere along the way, you started asking for less just to avoid being disappointed again. You call it independence, but it's really emotional starvation. You train yourself to need nothing, then wonder why you feel nothing. You say you want connection, but part of you fears being seen too clearly. Because if someone sees you, they might leave. So you hide behind small talk, jokes, accomplishments, anything but truth. When people drift away, you don't ask what happened. You assume it's your fault. The lonely mind always chooses self-blame over uncertainty. Because if everything is your fault, at least you feel in control. You don't just feel lonely, you start to prefer it. Because loneliness becomes predictable. People don't. Isolation becomes a habit, a safety mechanism, a familiar darkness, and your mind mistakes it for peace. But here's the turning point. Loneliness is not a curse. It's a message. It's your mind telling you something is missing, something human, something vital. You're not broken. You're unmet. And once you understand that, the whole emotional landscape shifts. You begin to see that your pain has logic. Your behavior has roots. Your emotions have stories. You stop fighting yourself and start listening. You realize you've survived not because you were numb, but because you were strong. And strength doesn't mean isolation, it means capacity. The capacity to feel, to connect, to care, to rebuild trust with your own mind. Loneliness becomes less like darkness and more like a compass. It points to exactly where healing needs to begin. And strangely, that realization brings a kind of calm. You start noticing people differently, not as threats, but as mirrors. You allow small moments of warmth to actually land. You let conversations breathe instead of rehearsing your next line. You share something real, just a little, and the world doesn't collapse. You realize people can meet you halfway if you stop running ahead to protect yourself. Connection becomes less about performance and more about presence. And loneliness begins to loosen its grip, not because someone saved you, but because you turned toward yourself. You stop negotiating your worth and start inhabiting it. And for the first time in years, you feel something unfamiliar, quiet strength. And that is when loneliness finally lets you go.